entrepreneur. It's not a title, it is a spirit of creating and building and seeing where there's gaps or patterns that aren't necessarily being seen. Every time an idea comes forward, you have that beginner's luck, and then the really hard shit starts. And sticking through that is ultimately, I think, what makes someone make the leap from being an entrepreneur to an owner.
So Brooke Bains is a growth strategist helping B2B tech founders build 8-figure strategies and raise capital effectively, drawing on her experience raising $75 million, scaling an 8-figure healthcare tech company, and participating in a $1 billion IPO. Brooke, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Of course. So I guess for our listeners, do you want to just kind of highlight a little bit about kind of how you got to where you are today?
Whew. That is a journey of 1,000 obstacles.
Sure.
Let's start with the first one.
So my career, actually, I've stopped referring to it as a career, has gone in so many different directions. I started out in real estate private equity on the investment banking side. And then I did that because I had a very early cancer diagnosis that kind of helped me see the fallacy of the American medical system and kind of the Western way of thinking. And so I decided not to pursue medical school and instead pursue finance. But I was always going to get a business degree when I was pursuing medicine, because most of the doctors that I got to shadow when I was in high school didn't know how to run a company. And so that is kind of that common thread between healthcare and why a healthcare thing came into my life later. And then also the fundraising and some of that work. And so my career has taken, in many ways, like life, these opportunities have just kind of come out as I have moved forward. So while I had all of these plans to go to medical school and then stay in investment banking, different things kind of took me down the path. But as I've gotten older and looked at things in hindsight, what I've realized is, like, I love building. I love helping other people build. I really like bringing nothing into something that people can experience and see and touch. And so that's really kind of the common thread in my career, which is why I enjoy go-to-market and helping companies think of their strategy and how they connect with customers. But this nonlinear path to what I am doing today versus what I started all comes down to what I call the spirit of being an entrepreneur, right? It's not a title, it is a spirit of creating and building and seeing where there's gaps or patterns that aren't necessarily being seen everywhere else. And that's probably the piece of this journey that has been the most fun, and also filled with lots of obstacles, because every time an idea comes forward, you have that beginner's luck, and then the really hard shit starts. And sticking through that is ultimately, I think, what makes someone make the leap from being an entrepreneur to an owner. I don't know if that was a helpful way of going into things, but let me know where you wanted me to expand.
Yeah, no. First off, I relate so much with, like, such an urge to build. I feel as though that's why Brahim and I connected so much, because we both, like, we just love building things. And when it came to our business or our clients' businesses, I mean, we just love to just roll up our sleeves and actually, like, build the dashboards, build the systems, build the automations, and, like, build systems. It's just been so much fun for us. And I think it's the reason that we really have gotten along so well over these past couple of years. So definitely share a love for that.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, like, in terms of, who you're servicing now. So, first off, I'd love to get clear for the audience, like, who exactly are you servicing now, and what exactly are you helping them with, so that, we can all kind of get up to speed on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent the last couple years, or more than a couple, working directly with CEOs and their leadership teams with this idea of helping them make strategy simpler and more approachable. And by strategy, I don't just mean words on a page, but I do mean it starts with words on a page for a CEO to get very clear on what they actually want to accomplish and why it even matters. And the why is important because that's the emotional piece that keeps things going. And from there, they're able to go to their team and say, hey, here's the what and the why. Now you need to tell me how you're going to do it. Or they can go to their investors with, here's what the actual roadmap looks like, not a fancified one, which I find in a lot of early kind of high growth tech startups, there's a lot of not real roadmaps that exist because they haven't done that hard work. So that's really where I have spent the lion's share of the last handful of years. What I started to see when I was working within the leadership teams with each one of these companies, and especially with women, is I was seeing these incredible builders who were frankly between bored and frustrated that they were in these kind of high growth companies. Their equity wasn't always converting. They were taking less pay, but they were still creating really good work. And I saw it a lot with women. And so that's where last year I kind of took the year to work while also be in school and studied Eastern medicine. And so what I came to was this kind of mashup of strategy with nervous system repatterning. And so now, rather than helping companies build strategy, which I love doing, but frankly, I got really bored with it for a couple of reasons. One, I felt like the companies said they may have wanted to really have operational strategy, but when push came to shove, they didn't want to commit to a direction. And so that just felt like, well, this is great, but none of the work's actually going anywhere. So as someone who loves to build, it's like, well, what are we building? We're doing nothing here. We're just spinning our wheels. And so after a while, I got a little bit tired of that. And so this last year was this bridge where I started working with these women to help them really reset themselves in a way that they could have greater clarity about what it is they wanted and why that even mattered. And then we started building a bridge to setting up the foundation of their business offering, where they were working more from clarity rather than leaving a system they didn't like and then recreating it in their business, which I also saw in the past as I helped women kind of make those transitions. So now my focus really is working with women. Either they're making the jump from corporate into building and kind of taking that first step in the entrepreneurial journey, or they own a company, but they're hitting a plateau and they need to do a turnaround. So I have found everything in life is turnaroundable. And so I use this system in kind of a boot camp format, like 90 days. It's enough time to, get everything together, but it's not so much time that people work towards being perfect or over planning and all of that nonsense that's easy to get into. So I have made a little bit of a transition in the last year and a half.
Can you can you give us some illustrations of examples of that transition, the before and after?
You mean my transition or working with
we're working with the clients?
Yeah,
just to help our listeners to imagine themselves in that situation.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of the women that I started working with, most of their patterning came from this survival way of working. So making a decision more based in fear of, I need to just get this right, or I need to figure this out, or I need to do this thing right now, or there will be some kind of consequence to pay, or gosh, especially because I work with people later on in their career, or I'm over 30 or 38. Really, I don't work with people who are younger than 35 typically, and I kind of prefer 40 plus. But I'm in my 40s, I'm falling behind, I have to do something. But in truth, most of the businesses being built by women today are women starting it in their 40s and 50s, and they're quite successful because we have been battle tested in systems that really were linear thinking systems instead of circular thinking systems. So what we do in the first part of this program is help somebody drop a lot of these patterns. So helping her get to a place where she's tracking, like, where am I truly out of balance in the thoughts, the feelings, the words, and the actions, right? Is a very simple diagnostic tool. So I define balance not as this thing that happens outside of us, but what happens inside, which is, are my thoughts what I'm thinking? Are my emotions what I'm feeling? Are my words what I'm saying? And are my actions, what are my behaviors? Are they aligned? And typically, all people, women or men, can tell where they're out of alignment, but usually they don't, or that they are out of alignment, but usually they don't know where. So this is a diagnostic to be like, oh my gosh, are my words totally off base with the actions that I'm taking? And I find that a lot of the people that I work with, that's the place to start, which is like, I'm saying yes to this, but in truth, I don't actually want to do it. And that creates a pattern of survival. Like, literally, it's hard to thrive when you're constantly betraying your own self. And so we, in the first part of the program, get to a very calm place that is based on measurable data of day to day. Like, how am I managing these 4 aspects of balance? And by the end of about 20 days, which is kind of the first part of the program, she's in a place where she's like catching herself in, negative thought patterns or different behaviors that she's saying yes to. Like, I'm going to go to 20 networking events this week. And most networking events are a total waste of time. And when building a business, they're a way of procrastinating. I see a lot of women go to networking events and they wonder why nothing's getting off the ground. So, like, little things that are happening, and we track that and get that really clear in 20 days. And at that point, she's like, oh, wow, I have been clouding all of my schedule with this, with this energy that doesn't work for me, and these things that I'm doing that have nothing to do with what I actually want. And then we can start building on, okay, if you're building a new business, what direction are you going in? What are you building? Or if you're turning something around, where do things need to be turned around? And then over the course of probably the next 30 days, and this is a 90-day program, what we're working on next is looking at the system. So that is the natural working rhythm. So, like, now that we've cleared out all the cobwebs and things are actually settled, now we can say, how do you actually want to work? What does that look like? You've been working in a way where you've been kind of meeting everyone else's expectations. How do you take back that control? So we define what that platform is through the systems. And then based on the direction of the business or how we're turning it around, we look at the actual systems in play, like what processes are in play, what technology are you actually using? Is it worthwhile? And we start to kind of weed all of that nonsense out, and we get to simplicity. Because simplicity is where the best businesses are ultimately built. And then after we kind of work through the architecture of resetting the nervous system, defining the natural rhythm, then we get into creating this structured momentum. Like, how do you really move the needle forward? Because what happens is when we start to move into the process of doing, because what we've done is we've said, what do we want? Why does it matter? Now, here's how we're going to do it. When we get into the how, what starts to creep in during that period of time, and this is where a lot of coaching doesn't help people get over the hump, is we start to hit our upper limit boundaries. So those are where, like, we have a big thing and then all of a sudden we get sick and we can't do it. And if that's a pattern that has persisted for someone for many years, it's an upper limit problem. Or things are going really well and we pick a fight or we find a conflict. And so what happens when we get into this place where we've weeded the cobwebs out and the nervous system is in a calm state, and then we have defined, like, how do we want to work and what are the systems that are going to support us? And then we start to work. this is where it turns from beginner's luck to, oh shit, like chaos starts to happen, because the world doesn't actually want you to change. The world is comfortable with who you are today. And so all of a sudden, these external dynamics start coming in to say, oh, are you sure you really want this? Oh, is this who you're going to become? And that's where these upper limit problems come in. So during this execution phase, and I leave about 60 days in there. So there's overlap in these phases, but I leave about 60 days because it's about 66 days to habituate a pattern. So you only need about 60 to 66 days of like honest discipline to change. And so that's where in this process, we start to work and build, and like every week we're taking things down and we're seeing progress, and she's either bringing in new clients or turning pieces around in the business so that margins are getting better. Whatever it is, we'll define that. Everyone's a little different in the way that they build their business. And during that time, we're working on noticing like, where do upper limits come in and how do we squash those now, so that when they go on their merry way after 90 days, they have habituated a new way of being. And ultimately, to be maybe more esoteric, in order to have the life that you want, you have to become another person, because if that life that you wanted were possible right now, you would already have it. That's the reality. And so we're working on this becoming.
If you want a different result, you
process.
need to do things differently.
100%. Well, it's more than do. You literally have to become something else.
Someone else.
And it's scary to become something else because the world around you doesn't know that. It's the unknown. It's truly walking into the abyss. And so a lot of coaching and advisory work just deals with these early stage things, and they're like, go have fun. But this is where many businesses end up failing. This is why the business failure rate is as high as it is, because there is no such thing as a business problem. All business problems are personal shit that we have not taken care of.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. In terms of the upper limit, like, why do you think that is? Like, what do you think causes that, and causes
also how do you treat that?
Well, I'll answer both, but I want to clarify, how do I treat that? What do you mean?
Like, how do you get the person to escape that upper limit?
Well, a lot of it is, so when I was in India, I worked with an incredible shaman, and he used 3 phrases all the time: alert, aware, and conscious. When we're all 3 of those things, so when we're alert, right? Like, we don't have brain fog, we're not walking around in a haze of confusion. It's a lot easier to see things clearly. When we're aware, it's like, I believe there's an Arabic proverb or story around the idea of a king giving a young man oil on a spoon and saying, go take a look at my beautiful grounds. And the young man goes around and is in awe of the majesty of the grounds. And when he comes back, the king said, but what happened to the oil in the spoon? And he said, oh, but I was paying such great attention to what you told me to pay attention to. And the king said, but life is about paying attention to all things. And so this concept of awareness is that. And then consciousness is where I will answer Jake's question of like a frequency wave, right? Like, everything on this planet is energy. Some of it is a lot more concrete, and others we can't see. Radio waves are a great example of energy, right? The man who invented the radio originally was thrown into an insane asylum because people are like, what are you talking about? There are not these waves out there. But so if we think about upper limits in terms of this frequency wave that goes up and down, you've got an upper limit and a lower limit. And so it could be as simple as, I'll use the word treatment, but it could be as simple as, let's say I'm working with a woman who is building a service business where she is taking her expertise, say in finance, and she wants to be her own wealth management firm, right? And let's say that she has consistently hit this plateau of not being able to take on more than 10 customers at a time. And because of the systems or lack of systems that she has in place, as she creeps up to this 10, she starts to feel panic rise and she's like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm hitting my ceiling." And then scarcity comes in, and then it's like you hit 10 and immediately fall down. And then as you start to fall down, as you maybe go from 10 to 7 to 5, then you hit your low end oh shit meter, which is like 3. You're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to make all of my payments." And so then you go into another mode. So and it's within a bound. So like it hits these upper and lower bounds. So in order to break those patterns, you literally have to shatter the top of the roof. I'm definitely not the only one who has ever talked about these. Like Gay Hendricks in The Big Leap talks about this. I mean, Sigmund Freud used to talk about this, even in Plato's writing.
Joe Dispenza, a lot of the language that you're using reminds me of Joe Dispenza, of like you have to become somebody else. He has like the quote, like, in order to change how you behave, you need to man, I'm butchering this right now, but you have to change your thoughts.
And if you change who you are, you need to change how you behave.
If you think the same thoughts, you're going to get the same result. So you have to change your thinking to then change the result. And so, I mean, but on top of that, like this upper limit, like it reminds me a little bit of the flea experiment, where it's like, you put the cap on the flea, on the lid of the fleas, and then they stop, realize they only go as high as the cap. And then when you remove the cap, they only still go as high as the cap, when otherwise they would have been able to go way higher. And it's kind of how it feels sometimes in life. And I think we can all relate to where we've thought we were going to, surpass a plateau or a goal that just didn't happen. And then you slide back down, and you're like, whether it's fitness, like getting in great shape, or getting, financials, or all the things, like there's been so many times, especially for me in my fitness journey, I'm like, cool, I'm like right there. And then I'll be there for like a week or two. And then for whatever reason, I just kind of fall off a little bit. I'm like, why did I do that?
Well, you hit the place of you hit some level of fear, right? So like if I'm real, the decision criteria is it fear or love? And I use that very simplistically, but all things that derail us, there's some fear behind it, because love is always inspired. There's always an inspirited nature to it. And so that can really break through anything. And it's like, what in the workout pattern was it? Like, did you kind of get to the weight or the goal of like feeling light, or, or the musculature was good enough that made you say, you know what, I can kind of rest on my laurels for right now? Like, that's totally normal.
Yeah. Well, in that specific situation, not to get too off topic, but I mean, I did a cut. I did a pretty aggressive cut when I was living by myself, and for, I'd say, 4 months or so. It was the first time, and I actually did this year. It was really cool. On my birthday, I made a commitment. I was going to do a real cut, and I've been trying to get super fit for, I'd say, 15 years. And I work out really intensely. I've done the 75 hard 3 times. The first time I did it twice in a row, which is, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, it's like 2 45-minute workouts. One has to be outdoors. You have to drink a gallon of water. You have to read 10 pages of, it's crazy. Okay. It's like an intense thing. And I never looked like as good as I felt like I should. And so it was until this birthday that I was like, I'm just going to get in the best shape of my life, no matter what it looks like. And then that commitment, I realized that, okay, to do that, I have to watch what's going in my face. That's it. I just have to watch what's going in my mouth. because when you really learn about, physique, it's like 80%, like they say, like abs are built in the kitchen. It's like without, like it's 1,000, it's like 80%, 80 to 90%, like just what's your calorie intake versus expenditure. Like that's it. That's all that really matters. So I did this goal and I was cutting for a while. And then, I got to a place where I was very, very excited. And then you're also really hungry all the time. So then like, okay, I should do a maintenance. But then I never did like a hard maintenance. Like I'm going to do it for this long. And then I never really recalculated. And so it kind of all became blurry. And then I'm at the phase now where today is Ramadan and Brahim is starting his fast. And I'm like, it's time. I'm getting back in. Let's go. I'm getting back to where I was because I loved where I was and I felt so accomplished when I got there. And so I didn't fall all the way back off, but I definitely went farther down than I am proud to admit. And so it's just, it's been a common theme in my life. So that's why I'm very curious, like, how do you break through and then sustain and then all the things, especially with something like fitness that like has to be maintained. You cannot not maintain. It's not like you implement a system and then that system
you need to continuously keep doing it.
Yeah.
Also, like the upper limit, what does it boil down to? Is it your mind and body protecting you from failure, or what's like the logic behind it?
I'm not sure if it's logic, but I'm going to call it a natural rhythm, like a heartbeat. So we'll use the example Jake just gave. In Jake's example, there was a ton of joy and enthusiasm with an undercurrent of deprivation. Fear is deprivation.
Yeah.
So when that exists, the upper limit will always trigger. And so as a result, what happens is like you climb, and you're like, yeah, I got here. But there's this, like, the body does need things. Like our bodies are brilliant at homeostasis or balance or alignment naturally without us doing anything. Now, our cognitive mind goes out and we do all of these things to create, a different kind of effect. But we can never break natural law without having a consequence, right? Equal and opposite. And so when we do something that creates an element or a thread of deprivation, fear, scarcity, whatever that might be, at some point, those will win for a little bit. And so that's the piece of understanding when those are present and finding a new way in a small pocket while you're still on the up to breaking through for how do you work around this piece that was created? Because if that's satisfied, let's call the deprivation. If the deprivation is satisfied briefly, we can find another way to work through it. So I used to be a triathlete. I used to run my body so hard. I keep a very consistent weight and I do not kill myself in the way that I do. I don't fast. I eat anything that I want to eat. I give myself daily movement, and my body is an incredible physical specimen. But because I choose 100% of everything for my body out of love versus fear, I used to choose a lot of things out of fear. My body responds, and so it stays within a nice bandwidth. And if I'm like, I want to do a little bit more, it tweaks. I will be able to reset something in under 30 days in my body, and I know exactly where to go. But it's a training. And so that's where you can break through these upper limits, right? And diet and exercise is one way, but we have these all throughout our lives. And truth be told, like, we're human beings. We're never, in order to grow, we're constantly breaking through these upper limits. And so we will always have some level of constraint, that ceiling that we have to say, well, how do we want to get on the other side of that? That's the Joe Dispenza way of saying, well, wait, your predictable past, if you change nothing in your present, you will have a predictable future, right? Like, that's his concept, which is true. And that's the same thing with this, like, this wave pattern that goes on. If everything is copacetic and you love this wave, stay in it. If you want to change something, that's where finding these little nuances along the way are really important. So when I work with people individually, that's what we're looking for in the working and executing and building the business phase, to help them see, like, in the moment, it's all correctable. If we truly, like, come to right now, all of this is correctable, and then we can keep moving forward and keep climbing up. And it doesn't mean you're going to not hit a plateau, because plateaus are good for a little bit. They're good for kind of getting ground, especially when you've made huge major progress. But, like, we want to keep moving things up until you say, I love where I am right now, and I'm just going to enjoy it. And that's also valid too. So part of this is, and this is why I do this work personally, because there's not just one way, but there are diagnostic ways to look at this. And that's really what I love doing, is helping people see that differently.
I love that analogy. Like, a plateau can be a beautiful thing. Like, let it be, okay, let's take a pause, let's reset. And I think that is what I failed to do when I'm really thinking about it, because I think a lot of the things you're talking about are kind of coming together. I do believe that the reason that I even got to the goal was because I did change my frequency of my thinking of, okay, I need to accept the fate that I need to do whatever it takes, and whatever it takes is the thing that I've been avoiding, which is tracking what's going in my face. So that's the first part. The second is that, I think that, like, positioning yourself of, like, okay, hit this plateau. And now what do I have to do to change the target from going up to going down to just, how do I maintain this plateau? And how do I kind of set that as a goal of, like, I'm just going to take a little rest. I'm not going to keep pushing, but I also don't want to slip. So I'm just going to kind of recommit here, stay where I'm at, to then build up the momentum, or to take a breather or whatnot, to then continue to kind of hit the next goal. I think that is what I failed to do. And I think instead it's like, cool, I hit this. I didn't set a plan after I hit it. And because I had no plan, my only, like, I was so hungry. I still, natural resistance still kind of brought me back to osmosis, back to normal. And yeah, I'm actually really thinking that could have helped tremendously, just given that quick feedback. So I appreciate that, Brooke.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think,
I guess I have another example on this, on, like, the
please.
upper limit. Like, there was, like, a pool, and I was trying to cross it. I'm not the best swimmer in the world. And basically what happens, I go up until I have, like, 1 meter to 2 meters, and I stop. Like, I feel like I can't breathe anymore.
So for context,
the way
we were trying to get Brahim to swim without breathing. So, like, going across the pool without taking air. So it's not that he couldn't swim; he can swim. It's just that, like, I have practiced since I was young, because I had a pool growing up, so I could go, like, to and from, like, without breathing. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't go to, like, the first wall.
So I was trying to do that. So basically, I had, like, 2 meters to 1 meter to go, and basically I tried it a lot of times. So the way I overcame the upper limit is I just counted my strikes. And I was able to, like, benchmark and see, okay, so I have 3 more. Nice, I can do it. And yeah, it's like, it's not like I can't hold my breath for that long. It's just I guess my body is protecting me in some reason, because I haven't done it before. So I
Definitely.
understand what you said about like having to maybe anchor it to something. In my case, it was counting the strikes. In something else, the strokes. In something else, it could be like another type of solution.
100%. And your body is protecting you because the body can only go so long with oxygen. However, people have shown they can go very small amounts of time or very large amounts of time based on kind of where their mental architecture is. And so anchoring it to something where it's like, well, right now it's just 3 strokes. But then once your body gets comfortable with the 3 strokes, then it can be, oh, cool, I can take 6 more strokes. Oh, wait, now I can take 12 more strokes. I mean, at some point, physiology does win, but within reason. Like that's kind of those incremental things. Like when I was in Canada, one of the silent meditations, the first time, I packed so poorly, right? I did not realize how cold it would be. And then it was even colder because where we were was like an old school that really didn't have great insulation or anything. And so I was really cold. And like the body being tight in meditation is not a fun experience, which I'm sure you've both experienced. And so I remember I was walking outside and I was cold. And I remember like creating a new thought pattern about being warm. And I will tell you what, like we can think our ways, ourself into that feeling of warmth. I mean, obviously within reason. If it's conditions for hypothermia, I might not be able to think my way that far. But in general conditions, like we can really get there. And it's really our belief system of how resilient and how powerful we truly are.
Wim Hof is known for doing exactly that. I mean, he would go into places where you would get, frostbite, and he would just sit down and meditate, and like he'd be fine. And it's crazy. And like, I mean, there's like documentaries on him, like he's like really pushed the limits, and it really is all in the mind. It's very interesting.
It's remarkable. I mean, even for migraines, there is like a guided meditation plus breath work that you can do, and within like 5 to 10 minutes, you're okay. The migraine is gone, and I've tried it. It's amazing what the mind can do.
Because the mind is not the brain, and that's the key. It's a total different energy field that surrounds the body. That's the place. If we go really esoteric and stuff, that's the place where the talk of the hive mind, or Carl Jung's the consciousness of the collective. That's that concept. The idea of the contagion of ideas, right? Like if ideas come to us in the same way that there's no original thought, we have all the same thoughts. So as a thought arises, really where the thought becomes real is when I wrap my story around it. But other than that, a thought's an inert thing that's passing over like traffic. But when we get to this place of like ideas coming to us, or let's say there's a great idea that comes to me, but I don't make a compact with that idea to nurture it, that idea is going to find a home elsewhere. So that's the reason why I don't know if you've had this. I've had this where I had a great idea. I didn't nurture it. And then I find somebody else came to market with that exact same idea. This is a contagion of ideas, and it's a great contagion to have. But when we make a compact with an idea to say, I'm going to nurture you and I'm going to bring you forward, the idea stays with us, and then it doesn't become anybody else's. That's also why I don't believe there's any such thing as true competition or the inability to bring your genius or your unique gifts forward because of how ideas flow. So that's probably a different topic, but that's another piece of the puzzle that I work on with people when I work with them, is to help them get to that place. And it requires trust. So it's like building your own trust fund.
So
that's a great way of thinking about it. It actually gives you actual peace, and you're actually able to work on a less of a stressful situation.
Yeah.
So Brooke, what would you say are some of the symptoms that you know, the women that you speak to, what would you say is like a common symptom of where they are, where it should really make sense for them to have a conversation with you?
Yeah. So one of the things that if there's a woman who comes to me and she has had a lot of success either in the corporate world or in kind of high growth startups, I separate them because they're a little bit of different beasts. And she has had this like feeling of like, oh my gosh, I've wanted to create something for myself for such a long time. But what I've done is I've boomeranged into taking these executive roles because they pay me very well and kind of nice to have the power of the title. And so then what I do is I do these ad hoc, like side projects that bring me a lot of joy and maybe a little bit of income, but I don't actually believe yet that I could make enough to supplement this huge, income that I have. But I feel like as I'm getting older or further in my career, that this knock at the door is getting louder, that if I don't create this thing, that I'm going to be really disappointed, right? So I call that divine discontent. But that's one kind of scenario where if that pull to build, right, is there, but what you've been building is for other people's visions and you're kind of bored, but you're also kind of scared because you've gotten so locked into this lifestyle that you're like, oh, I don't know if I can change this. And if I do, I'm going to disappoint all of the contracts that I have around me. Right. So that's one woman that I think is a perfect fit. And in truth, I do work with men. So if a man says, yeah, let's do this, I'm all for it. But as you can imagine, in a place to focus, I spent time there because I saw this time and again with a lot of the female leaders that I was working with on teams. So another place is someone who has made the leap and they've said, okay, this is where I want to apply my talents and my genius, but I am hitting these plateaus. Like, what the heck? I know I'm talented. I know what I'm doing. And yet I'm hitting myself up against a brick wall, right? Upper limit. So that same woman who has her own thing, but it's not exactly where she wants, or she's way too embedded in her company. And so her team isn't able to do anything. And right, like stepping back's the answer, but let's get to the reasons why you need to step back and where you need to focus. So that's another great place for somebody to come work with me. I don't like people to stay circling the drain or stuck for too long, but sometimes being stuck for a little bit creates enough pain to make a change. So that's another place. Another piece of the pie is someone who has created too much complexity in their business. And so they have something that's really running, but they don't really know how to simplify it. And they want to be able to replicate it so that they can sell it or they can grow it. And they don't really have the clarity because they're so steeped in the doing aspects of the business that they're like, I don't even know how to take myself up above to see the horizon line. That's another great place because a lot of the same things are happening. Like she's likely pretty shut down in terms of like how her system is responding. Like she's probably in very much reaction mode. Maybe her sleep is really compromised. She's saying yes to a lot more than is really necessary to say yes to. And she's resentful because she wishes she would have said no. And that creates this tension in a business. I'm sure you've worked with people who have had that same experience. She's feeling like if she takes herself out for a moment, everything is going to fall down, but she's worked really hard to build this endeavor. So that's another place for people to come work with me. And then someone who is still wanting to stay in a career for a little bit to build a cushion so that they can make an exit in time. What I love to do, and this is where I've done work with people in their early 30s, is helping people recognize what resources they really have and how they can compound those, and then help them come to what their exit strategy really looks like, and not something that they keep kicking the can down the road. So those are the 4 scenarios.
Amazing.
Awesome. And how can people contact you and find more about you?
Yes. So I've got to get all of these properties back up and running, but 2 ways. So on LinkedIn, they can connect with me at Brooke Bains, and Bold Enterprise. Actually, we didn't get to the name, but the name is Bold Enterprise, and bold means to undertake something with courage, and enterprise in its archaic definition is effectively to pursue one's greatest adventure. So that's the reason for the name. The other place is on Instagram at Brooke.Bains. I am just getting back onto Instagram after being away for 5 years, and I'm playing with learning to build content in that realm. But those are the 2 ways. And then I will have a link tree and a way to get a hold of me that way. But those, I would start there. DM me or send me a note on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much. It was a very fun conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. This was amazing. I'm so glad I got to spend it with you.
Awesome.